What's up, pod people, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. How you doing, Tim?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. So before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you have read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today we'll be discussing chapters 20 and 21 of the Dragon Reborn, where Matt has to deal with some unwelcome visitors and Verin introduces Egwene to the world of dreams. Chapter 20 is called Visitations, and the icon is Lanfear's moon sigil.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. The door opens, and the most beautiful woman Matt has ever seen walks in, dressed in white and silver. She tells him that she was in the tower on other matters and wanted to see him. She mocks the way Aes Sedai do healing and tells Matt to be sure to eat everything they give him if he wants to regain his strength. He asks her if he knows her, and she tells him to call her Selene. He asks if she's Aes Sedai, and she says no. If you feel you're experiencing deja vu, it's because we've seen this before. You know what's coming next. Let's all say it together. Glory. She tells him that the Aes Sedai will try to use him, and she can see his ambition and interest in glory. Matt tries to deny that he's important, claiming that he's just a farmer who wants to see a little of the world, but she's not buying it. Her derision of Aes Sedai makes him wonder if she's a dark friend, which she denies, mocking those who follow Baalzamon and saying that she follows no one. As Matt tries to figure her out, Selene tries to convince him to trust her. She admits that she will try to use him too, but that her use will bring him wealth, power, and glory. When he asks why he should trust her, she says that she will be more honest than the Aes Sedai. She says that his dad came to find him. Abel Coffin and Tamal Thor came to Tarvalon, searching for the boys, and the Amyrlin sent them home with no answers. Selene bets that the Aes Sedai won't tell him that in case he tries to run back home. She says they also won't tell him that Rand is trying to escape Moraine, and that the Black Aja is in the White Tower. She tells him that he can't trust the Aes Sedai, and when he is wishy-washy, she loses her temper and uses the power on him. His head began to hurt, and he felt a tingle on his skin. Before she could do any real damage, the sensation stops, and she acts as if she hears something coming. She gives him a final warning about who to trust and a promise of rewards for obedience, and leaves. Matt is thoroughly confused by Selene's visit, but he knows enough to get out of Dodge and starts to dress and gather his things. He doesn't have much, but he's got his dice cups, and that should be enough to get him away. There is a knock on the door, and the Amyrlin Seat and Keeper of the Chronicles come in. He recognized them both from Faldara. They are surprised to see him up, and Swan tells him to get back in bed before he falls over. She asks after his health, and Matt says that he feels great and is ready to be on his way. Swan is having none of it. She explains the severity of the healing that was done to him, and that she took precautions to make sure he didn't leave before he had time to recover. She sent his description to all the bridge guards and dockmasters, so he cannot leave the city. When he demands to know why they want to keep him so badly, Swan tells him that they don't know what effects the dagger might have had on him, and in time he might need more healing. Matt tests the Amyrlin with the information that Selene gave him, leading the conversation to his dad's visit. It takes a lot of prompting, but Swan does admit that Abel came to Tarvalon. Matt asks about Rand, and Swan gives him an Aes Sedai answer. She sends Leanne out to get Matt some pie and tells Matt that some things are too dangerous to talk about. Matt plays dumb and says he can barely remember anything at all. She asks if he remembers the horn, and when he asks what horn, she threatens him that he'll regret playing games with her. He admits he remembers blowing the horn. She explains his link to the horn, and he panics that she wants him to sound the horn at the last battle. But since the alternative is death, he has no choice. He makes it clear, though, that he is no hero. Swan explains how dangerous it will be for him if anyone finds out about the horn, and tries to use his safety as a good reason for him to stay. She leaves him, telling him to rest, but feeling trapped between the Amyrlin and Selene, Matt lay there for hours trying to puzzle out a way out of Tarvalon.
What I love about this chapter is that we get a real sense of how the healing has changed Matt. He takes a second to literally take a breath and pause to think of an answer when he's faced with a strange woman who has him off balance. That never happened before the healing. He's the one who's always flapping his gums and saying too much without thinking at all. He's freaking out internally, but doing a good job of presenting a cool exterior while being asked questions instead of jumping right to making excuses or denying anything. Mm-hmm. Yet we also see he has not changed. He's still very distrustful of Aes Sedai and is very much interested in glory as long as the strings attached are worth it. He's not afraid to press his luck with the stranger and straight up asks why he should trust her. I really like this Matt, much, much more than the one we had in the past.
For sure.
Selene says that the dagger made him suspicious, but I think it made him more cautious. And he really needed that change.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Definitely. The whole Selene shtick is getting pretty tired, but I do like that she tells Matt that there's no need to convince him to seek out glory because he's already predisposed to do so. Mm-hmm. Like, it didn't work so well with Rand, and it was a miserable failure with Perrin. But out of the three boys, Matt has always been interested in wealth and glory.
Yep.
But like you were saying, Matt has finally learned to be cautious. Like, I don't think that this version of Matt would have blindly followed Mordeth into a dark building in search of treasure like his previous incarnation did.
No, he wouldn't.
So here, Matt is going to need a little bit more than the promise of glory to get him to trust Selene.
Yep.
Which is good.
Yes, it is.
When Matt insinuates that Selene is a dark friend, her response is really interesting. She says, quote, "A dark friend," Selene said mockingly. She sounded amused, not angered. She sounded contemptuous. One of those pathetic followers of Baalsman who thinks he will give them immortality and power. I follow no one. There is one man I could stand beside, but I do not follow. So I'm confused.
Okay.
I thought dark friends followed the dark one, and as a Forsaken, she does too. I mean, obviously she doesn't follow Ishmael, but there's that whole Great Lord of the Dark guy that's always punishing them for screwing up. So she certainly follows someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what was she trying to say here?
Well, I don't think when she says any man, she includes the Dark One in that, like, group. Like, the Dark One is more than a man. The Dark One's the Dark One. Like, he's evil. He's not human. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so. She's classifying the Dark One in, like, a completely different category.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when she's talking about the followers of Baalsman, she's definitely talking about Ishmael.
Right.
And obviously she doesn't follow him. But, I mean, she definitely follows the Dark One. Like, for sure. She's submissive.
True, but if she is the kind of person to have followers, not be a follower. Even though she doesn't necessarily have very many, like, minions in the story, like she is not one to follow any man. And I think it's really telling with the line where she says she could stand beside one, like as an equal to, like, and alongside of in a quest and accomplish something with. But
and she's definitely talking about
Lews Therin. Yeah, absolutely. But to stand below any other man is it's insinuating that she's talking about a fellow human being. Because I do think she still considers herself human because she is.
Yeah.
But the Dark One is, like, beyond that classification.
Okay, that makes sense.
We hear that Matt and Rand's dads were at the tower looking for them. We find out later that Lanfear is telling the truth, but I totally get why Matt doubts her in this scene. She is pushing really hard to get him to trust her.
Yeah.
More than any other Edmonds fielder, Matt knows the art of the con, and I think that he senses that she's trying too hard, and that she is shady as all get out.
Yeah.
The cool thing is that even though he's drained and recovering from the healing, he still senses something is wrong. He keeps using his brain through this whole chapter, the thing that everyone he knows always says he never does. Well done, Matt.
Earlier in the chapter, Lanfear tells Matt, "I will not compel you. I've always believed men perform better if convinced rather than forced." But when she loses her temper and channels on him, I always assumed that she was trying to compel him. Like, it sounds like she lost patience with him and was just going to cut to the chase. Do you have a different reading for that? Like, was this just pain, or do you agree that it was compulsion?
I think she was definitely trying to start a weave of compulsion. Like,
okay, yeah.
I think Matt, who has the propensity to try even the most patient of people, I think he's stall, whether you want to call it stall tactics or just his confusion or whatever it is, like the way he's responding to her, she is not the most patient woman in this entire series. No, she really has no patience. So when he is just being a little thick, I think she's just like, well, screw it, I'll compel you anyway. And I think that's what he feels is like the start of that compulsion weave starting to take hold.
Okay, so yeah, we're both in agreement that it was going to be compulsion.
Absolutely. I think she was going to do that. Good thing it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Something struck me as Matt reviews the items from his pouch. Like he's carrying a red hawk feather and a smooth color striped stone. Matt likes to keep pretty things. Hawk feathers are soft and colorful, at least in my opinion, and the stone is described as smooth and colorful. We will get plenty of opportunity to talk about how Matt likes his fancy clothes, and people like to complain that it doesn't really fit his character. But I wanted to point out that he had the character trait of liking pretty things all the way back here, before he ever had any new memories added to his head.
Yeah. So Matt tries really hard, but I don't think he does nearly as well handling Swan as he did handling Lanfear.
Right.
She has him pegged and plays him like a fiddle from the moment she walks in the door. When he tries to say he's well enough to leave, she dismisses it as nonsense and immediately starts talking to Leanne about him as if he's not there and making generalizations about men. And that reminds him of how Nynaeve and his mother treated him when he was younger.
Yeah.
So this doesn't just put him on edge and more likely to slip up, but it takes away his power and equates her, in his mind, with known authority figures that he's already submitted to.
Right.
So at the outset of the conversation, he's already at a disadvantage, and she capitalizes on it. By the time she threatens him about not playing games with her, he has no other play than to be honest. She gives him just enough information to answer his questions, but not enough to reveal anything he shouldn't know. Matt frustrates Swan to no end, like we said, is his talent. But she's in control of that conversation the whole time.
Yeah, it's like she's manipulated world leaders for most of her
Yeah, I mean, she's
yeah.
a master manipulator. Like, Swan knows how to play the game.
Patience
no
is
matter
something-
what
yeah.
the game is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Matt does a good job of checking the facts about his dad coming to Tar-Valon to find him. He tries to trip up Suan to see if he could trust what Lanfear said, but she did eventually tell him the truth. Everything Lanfear said about Aes Sedai lying to Matt turned out to be wrong. He doesn't trust the Amyrlin, but he knows he can't trust Selene either.
I like the story that Suan tells that pretty much sums up who Matt is about her uncle.
Oh, yeah.
Quote, "You remind me of my Uncle Huan. No one could ever pin him down. He liked to gamble, too, and he'd much rather have fun than work. He died pulling children out of a burning house. He wouldn't stop going back as long as there was one left inside. Are you like him, Matt? Will you be there when the flames are high?" Of course, he responds that he's no hero, that he only does what he has to. And she tells him that most heroes only did what they had to do. And Swan is dead on. Like we said last week, the key to Matt is to ignore what he says and look at what he does.
Right.
He'll grouse and complain the whole time and call himself a fool 10 times over for doing it, but he'll keep going back into the flames because it's the right thing to do.
Matt's in a pickle, but there is something that is kind of heartwarming about how this chapter ends with Matt's last thought. All he had to do was think about it from every angle, just like his dad taught him. The apple didn't fall far from that tree. That wraps up Chapter 20. But before we get to Chapter 21, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by Verin Sedai's Museum of Medical Oddities. Satisfy every quirky curiosity your mind can dream up with each new and unique specimen. Come see her bleached white lizard skull, longer than your arm with crooked teeth as big as your fingers. She's got bones and skulls of every shape and description. Verin Sedai's Museum of Medical Oddities. What will she come across next?
Chapter 21 is called A World of Dreams, and the icon is the Dream Ring.
After working in the kitchens, Egwene is summoned to Verin's study. The room is a tumult of books and maps, skulls and bones, and odd instruments everywhere. Egwene finds Verin at her desk in the midst of the chaos, studying a single piece of paper. Her Verinness is dialed up to 11, and she confuses Egwene, talking in riddles about things she couldn't possibly understand. And I am 100% here for it. She rummages around her piles of books and pulls out a few sheets of paper, handing them off to Eggs and explaining that it's all the information they have on Leandrin and her cronies, as well as everything they know about the Terangrial that were taken. Eggs wonders to herself if Verin left anything out, but then dismisses the thought and tells Verin that she trusts her. Verin tells her the other reason she was summoned was because Anaya told her that Eggs might be a dreamer. In her own Verin-like way, with lots of extraneous and confusing information to go along with it, Verin tells Eggs about the world of dreams. Verin gives Egwene a twisted stone ring, a Terangrial, that was kept by the last dreamer the tower had, Corianin Nadil, 473 years ago. The ring was said to ease the passage into Teleran Riyadh, the world of dreams, and that it would work for those without the ability to channel as well, as long as the person was touching it when they slept. Egwene is to keep it for now. Verin warns Egwene that Teleran Riyadh is dangerous, and what happens there is real. She shows Eggs the scar she received from her one attempt at visiting that Anaya's healing couldn't heal completely. She also warns Eggs to keep the ring a secret, because no novice, or even accepted, should have such a thing. With that, she sends Egwene off to bed. Alone again in her study, Verin pulls out all of Corianin Nadil's notes on everything she learned in 50 years of studying the ring Terangrial. She had been a secretive woman, and Verin was sure no one else knew about the ring. Once again, she considered burning the manuscript, just as she had considered giving it to Egwene. But she could not bring herself to destroy knowledge of any kind, and as for Eggs, she figures that it would be best to leave things as they are. What will happen will happen. Verin goes back to her studies and puts Egwene out of her mind entirely.
There's something about the chaotic and eclectic state of Verin's room that I just love.
Me too.
I don't think I could ever work in that space, but I would love to explore it. Skulls, star charts, and all kinds of knowledge just piled everywhere you look. But I do get how it can be a little creepy if you're already thinking about people lurking around corners who may be trying to kill you.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is the owl and how like Egwene reacts when she realizes that it's alive.
Yeah, it reminded me of Archimedes from Sword in the Stone.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember Merlin's office was also sort of a jumble of books and things, and then you've got that owl?
Yeah, and then Wart porks it and like, oh my gosh, he's really, absolutely, yeah.
So that's your favorite part?
That's my favorite part, yeah. What about you?
I don't know, I really love the Trolloc skull.
Okay.
But all the details are great. I mean, I've been in several professors' offices, and for many, this isn't far off. Like, we have a friend who's an English professor, and visiting her office always involves moving stacks of books and papers around just to clear off a space to sit.
Yep.
The description of Verin's study is just perfect. And, like, I can almost smell the dust and the leather and the must of old books. Like, I love it. I love Verin. And her Verinness is turned up so high in this chapter. We get a lot of information, but she talks in tangents and riddles, so it's hard to follow, especially the first time reading through, because you have no idea what she's talking about.
Right.
Now, when we read that fragment of the passage from before the breaking, we can understand, but the first time, it was nonsense. And it has nothing to do with Egwene. Like, Verin's actually a great literary device for Jordan, because he can drop all sorts of information on us completely out of context and blame it all on Verin's eccentricities.
Yep.
You know, like, she's so random. He doesn't have to find a way to shoehorn the information in. He can just drop the little bit of information and just blame it on Verin being random.
Right, and it's not like when you run into Dumbledore or Gandalf and other stories where it's like the information is specific and expositional. No,
this is just out of nowhere.
But it always comes back later in some way.
Yeah, like, it's important information for us, the reader, to have, but, like, it has nothing to do with Egwene.
Yep.
It never comes back for Egwene.
Yep.
It just comes back for the rest of us. Yeah, I love Verin. I love Verin so much. Anyway, so Verin gives Egwene all the information on the Black Sisters, and Egg starts to wonder if she can trust Verin, but immediately dismisses the idea, refusing to believe that Verin could be a dark friend. She tells Verin that she trusts her, and the book says, quote, The Aes Sedai blinked at her again, then dismissed whatever thought had come to her with a shake of her head. I wish we could know what Verin was thinking in that moment.
Yeah.
You know? She's already tried to warn Egwene not to trust anyone. So on one hand, she's probably thinking Egwene's a fool. But on the other hand, it's kind of sweet. Like, I think Verin grows a soft spot for Egwene.
Well, yeah, I think so too. I think she recognizes in Egwene that Egwene's going to do great things. But at the same time, I think you're also right. She's thinking, dumbass, I'm a black... You're trusting me, and you're supposed to be hunting the black, and I'm the black. I think she knows that in the back mind.
I mean, it's sweet. Like, Egwene just coming out and saying, I trust you. It's nice to hear that.
It really is.
But at the same time, you know, Verin knows that she's technically part of the Black Aja, so she's like, you're an idiot.
Yep, basically, yeah. Jordan gives us another explanation of his version of the multiverse theory, but adds new information about how the Dark One exists across all realities. I don't pretend to be an expert in string or M theory, but I think this was a mistake on his part. He presents an argument that if the Dark One is kept as a prisoner in one reality, he's bound in all. The problem with that is that's not how multiverses work. All possible outcomes have to exist, including the one where the Dark One wins. He tries to explain this away by saying that the Dark One is the embodiment of paradox, so the typical rules basically don't apply, and that there are realities that we may not be aware of. But this just doesn't sit well with me. Regardless, rules are important, and Jordan is starting to lay them out for us. Even if I don't agree with the rules, at least we know the framework that this universe is working in.
I don't understand most of what you just said, so I'm going to say good point.
Okay.
Once you start talking about M theory and multiverses, I don't know, but sounds good to me.
Yeah, sorry, I just totally flew my science geek flag, but yeah. And on with the podcast.
Okay.
When I read this chapter, I kind of envision Kathy Najimy as Verin.
Right?
With that absent-minded kind of air and giving the exposition here as if it was throwaway lines. She gives the sense of being a little flighty and coming off as a bit rambly. But she has a subtle tone that lets you know that what she's saying is important. What I love about this section is that Verin just throws the information at Egwene with a confidence that she's smart enough to handle it. Mm-hmm. Egwene may not understand everything right at this moment.
Or anything at this moment.
True. But Verin is laying a very important foundation for how the World of Dreams works. Mm-hmm. She is not requiring Egwene to jump through hoops. She's not making her take tests to prove that all of her understanding. She just expects Egwene to get it and store it away in her brain for later use. This may not be a very good teaching method for most Tower initiates, but Verin has to get Egwene up to speed ASAP. And Egwene is exactly the kind of overachieving personality that it can make this work. And she does.
Yeah.
It must be kind of trippy to be given something that has so much history attached to it.
Yeah.
As an American, our country is still pretty young. So we don't have the same sense of history many other countries do. Mm-hmm. The Dream Tangreal is at least 500 years old. Egwene is entrusted with it and the power it can give her to enter the dream world. It's just really cool, but hard to kind of wrap my mind around the weight of receiving an object like that.
Yeah, I could see that. And let's remember that if you die in the dream world, you die in real life, as we will be reminded over and over again. It's dangerous. We get it.
Someone should write a song.
Verin does not give Egwene Corionin Nadil's notes on the World of Dreams.
Yeah.
We see that she's conflicted about whether or not to destroy them, but as a Brown, there's no way she'd bring herself to destroying knowledge. So why do you think she didn't give the notes to Egwene? She says that, what will happen, but that's not really a reason. So what do you think?
Honestly, I go back and forth on it a lot, different ways. I think the one I land on the most is that while Egwene would have really benefited from having some kind of a guidance or instruction manual, that if that ring falls into the wrong hands and those same person also has the notes, that could be just drastically tragic.
Okay, so you think that because she gave Egwene the ring, and she's not sure if Egwene's going to be able to stand up against a Black Aja if she comes across it, she doesn't want the ring and the notes in the same spot.
Or even worse, maybe just a random dark friend who's telling them steals it. Because remember, this ring works for people who can channel and people who can't channel alike. So maybe some other non-powered dark friend could get a hold of it. Like, I don't really know a detail. I don't really have like a detailed, like, this is the way it is. It's just maybe she was afraid it would fall. The notes falling into the wrong hands would spell disaster.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's hard to figure out her motivations. Because, okay, so first of all, the reason I think that passage is in here is because it's the third book, and as we've already stated with Sheriam and Verin and Anaya, and we'll see Alana in the next couple chapters, Jordan was making it so that we trust no Aes Sedai.
True.
He wanted everybody to seem super shady and super sneaky and have all sorts of secrets and questionable motives.
Okay.
So I'm 100% sure that's why that passage is in there, so that we're wondering what Verin's alliances are. But now that we know how the story plays out, so Verin is a Black Aja mole. And she does have certain vows that she's bound by because of the Black Aja.
Right.
So I wonder how much she's able to help Egwene and how much she's not able to because of those vows. I don't know. Like, I mean, she's not under any obligation to Swan to give Egwene the ring because she says that she's probably the only one who knows the ring's existence because the original Dreamer was so secretive.
Right.
So it's not like Swan told her, you know, give Egwene all the information about the Black Sisters and the Turn Girl, and also she might be a Dreamer, so help her out there. This is Verin acting on her own accord. She heard from Anaya that that Egwene might be a Dreamer, so she took it upon herself to give the ring to Egwene, and no one knows about the ring. So I'm just like, if she went that far, why wouldn't she give Egwene her notes? You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so I'm just thinking off the cuff here. As I hear you talking about this, something went off in the back of my mind. So the previous chapter was Lanfear talking to Matt.
Yes.
And Egwene, there's a brief moment when Egwene's walking.
She sees someone in white and she thinks it's a novice.
Yes, she thinks someone in white is coming away from Verin's study. So what you just said about Verin being bound to certain things by the Black Aja, maybe the other business that Lanfear had to attend to was somehow give her some kind of orders or something regarding Egwene or something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, if she's not allowed to work against one of the Forsaken, and Lanfear's realm is the dream world, that's like her domain, maybe that's why she didn't give Egwene the notes on the how-to, because that maybe goes too far. Again, I'm just kind of reaching. I don't think this is a good theory to stand on, but just trying to come up with some kind of reason. Maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah, I think I like your theory better, that she just didn't want both the ring and the notes to fall into the wrong hands.
Right.
And she knows that the notes are safe with her.
Right.
She trusts herself. You know what I mean?
As far as she can, yes.
Verin knows what Verin's doing. I always trust Verin. Even Verin trusts Verin. Anyway. But yeah, like I do like that idea. I think that makes sense. It's not spelled out, so it's just, you know, us coming up with random theories on our own with no proof whatsoever. But I do like that idea, that that's a reasonable explanation that I can buy.
Okay. That's it for chapters 20 and 21 of The Dragon Reborn. Join us next week for chapters 22 and 23, where we see Egwene's accepted test.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so more people can find us. If you could tweet us at Pod-Thru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Or find our Wheel of Time Pod-Thru channel on YouTube. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, do the things. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.